doing intervention with me. You have to vote for so and so. You have to vote. I'm like, I'm not voting for any of them. I'm gonna write in a cartoon character, which I did. And so anyway.
I get that.
So
I do. I think Gubby could do a much better job.
There were so. By the way, I voted for Eric Cartman from South Park. I wanted to say that publicly, and it's also in my book. But anyway, so there were so many of my friends saying, "What are you doing? What are you doing for such a time as this? We need to vote this way." And I'm like, "You can vote that way." And then there was so much pressure on me, and Daryl and I met when he was running for U.S. Senate in 2016, and so I was the closest person in Daryl's life at the time, and I'm just watching this circus, right? And so I took it back to the Lord. I said, Lord, and now I asked a direct question, right? Because before I was like, how do you want me to vote? And he said, don't vote for either, right? So now I'm like, am I supposed to vote for Donald Trump? And he said, no.
Okay.
And I said, okay, that was a direct question and a direct answer. All right, I won't. Well, anyway, so I stood my ground. I didn't do that, but God has reasons for
I'm not mad.
giving.
I mean,
right.
I think we all have to do what we're called to do.
Right, exactly.
But now we have challenges today.
We do.
And I think we need to focus on those.
So the backstory, but the backstory behind this is when you read these books. First of all, the tone that comes through these books is not my tone. Because I can be pretty fiery, I can get on a soapbox, and I can talk to a group of people and say, yeah, let me tell you, you are arrogant, you're not doing your job, that kind of thing. But I know that these books are inspired by the Holy Spirit because when you read them, they are filled with hope and encouragement, but there is rebuke in there. But he would change my phrases, my words, my sentences when I wrote these books so that it was actually his thoughts and heart and not mine. And so, anyway, so I try when I speak to make sure that when I do speak, people feel his heart, not mine.
So, in the coming time of trouble, we all know that's beginning with the recession they won't tell us the truth about that we're already in.
Right.
So, in the coming time of trouble, as this separation is taking place and people are having to kind of side with the government that's doing some toxic stuff or side, with the kingdom, how does that play out in the books?
Okay. So what he said was, and the Lord has talked to me about the government for years, and he's told me very specific things. And I share some of those things in this book. He's given me very specific word about the government. And we are looking at, we're now witnessing the establishment of the one world government.
Yeah.
Right? And so it is forming. It's formed.
Oh, yeah.
The beast system is already established. The switch hasn't been flipped on yet. But if anybody believes that the beast system is not established, it is. It's there and it's waiting to be turned on. Now, is that a year from now? 3, 5, 10, whatever, right? I don't know. And so what God is...
Oh, no, we could see the control that took place in the same way with the same language in country after country. We're having the same problems they're having in Australia or Spain, or it's just eerily too similar.
So God says, hey, do you trust me? And we as Christians, the answer to that should be yes, right? But what he's calling us to do, what he's asking us to do, is to go back to the Christian community in the Bible, right?
The people who were ultra connected, who took care of one another?
Yes, who threw their money into a pot.
Woo, yes!
Who threw their possessions into a pot.
Yes.
And then took care of everybody in the community, right?
Yes.
And so I think it was Ananias, or I don't remember his name.
Ananias and Sapphira.
Didn't they get struck dead because they kept back?
Yeah, but it was. I think it was deeper than that.
Of course.
I think these relationships between the people were so strong, and the love was flowing in a way that it was, and they just really had to go really far out to step away from that. You know what I mean?
Right.
And the lying is kind of where some of that took place. And if they wanted to keep it, they probably could have just kept it, but they just lied.
So we're seeing a shaking right now, and it's so that we start to understand oh, wait a minute, everything I have is because of God anyway, because of
Yes.
the Lord, right?
Right.
And so he's wanting us, and we're stubborn, like we are super arrogant in the United States of America about our faith. And we're not even as good of Christians, I would argue, as maybe in other countries,
That's
right?
real.
Where they're persecuted and they really have to rely on their faith. And so this God's public option concept, which we will get to in greater detail, it requires a paradigm shift.
Yeah.
Because there are very few Christians that I've had conversations with that are willing to give up
Anything.
what they have right now to actually help the people
It's true.
that are being hooked on the government financial
It's true.
meat hooks,
Right.
right? And
Right.
being sent to the slaughter. And anyway, so what's interesting is because of COVID, we're now seeing middle class people, we're now seeing small business people who are now saying, hey government, can I have some more? Can you give me some more? Can you help me some more? Can you, whereas before they were like looking at people who took government subsidies and they were like, ugh, just pull yourself up by your bootstraps, will you? Why can't you do it without government help? And now it's like God saying,
Now
Guess
you
what?
see why.
you guess what? You're asking the government for more help now, right? So he's opening our eyes right now. But the God's public option, which is the blueprint to separate us from the government, will solve brilliantly as a revolutionary solution the employment problem, the staffing shortage for small business problem, the housing problem, the healthcare problem, the education problem, you name it. It literally, everything connects to this hub. This
Yeah.
is the hub that every single solitary thing connects into, and it ultimately is a system by our own free will.
Right.
We make a choice to be a part of,
Right.
because it's either this or it's the government. So what we're headed into, it's you have to pick your provider. Is it Jehovah Jireh of the Bible, our creator, or is it the government? Because there will be no in between anymore. And you're gonna pick a path.
I think that's true. And as we live through this time of the government suggesting this universal basic income that they want to put everybody on, that's weird.
By the
You know
way,
what I mean?
just a minute though, because the God's public option is based on a universal basic income concept.
Sure.
Okay? So when God shows me, he says, look, here's real, here's counterfeit, right?
That.
Right? So the globalists and the anti-Christ government movement
Yep,
is the
they're bringing the
counterfeit, is the counterfeit universal basic income system.
Yeah,
But when you
yeah.
look at the most successful universal basic income prototype, it's the military,
Oh.
right? So when you think about a system that worked where everybody gets a universal basic income, it's the military, okay? But now in this, he's saying, look, you have to pay people for working. The Lord says, look, you got to pay people. I tell them in my word.
Right.
If you have a biblical work ethic, you will be blessed. But the government and, the Christian community has blocked the blessings of the work ethic to the worker. So this is going to restore that. God is going to bring righteousness. He's going to bring justice. He's going to bring reparations. He's going to bring everything through this system on his own with no government involved.
That is an amazing set of thoughts. So, the public option essentially is going to be people coming together, sharing of resources. Now, this will be attractive to some people.
Yeah, a lot of people.
Yeah, and I think that's an exciting idea. And the point of all of it is it's not going to be attached to the government. I'm glad, because from what I can see, the way the government takes care of people, quote unquote, I see people on the social security system, and they can barely live, but they can't do anything else because you're not allowed to work. I see, you know what I mean? I see
Right.
people on this welfare system. You can barely survive, and that's the standard of living. You can barely survive, but you're not allowed to work. But the system you're talking about, we regained the dignity of work.
Right.
That's exciting.
And it's brilliant because this is a natural world solution. So this is how cool Jesus is, right? He knows how we think. We think worldly, even though he says don't conform to the world, right? He knows that we're worldly people and that we think worldly. So this is a solution.
Okay.
This is a solution that is actually can be established right now with no new or repealed legislation, no public funding whatsoever. It's built on a franchise business model, so it can be duplicated and scaled immediately and launched in any city in America right now.
I love it. We want to hear more about that right after this commercial break. Hey, I'm going to remind you before we get ready to leave this segment that the Family Flavor Slide World Broadcasting Network and NBC Global present Slippin' and Slidin' Sunday, July 17th from 12 to 5 p.m. over in Wildflower Park here in Colorado Springs. Oh, it's going to be fun. It's going to be all kinds of games, live music, food, races, bounce houses, and slides. And yes, we're bringing it back, the backpack benefit for the kids. If you want to call in and join us in this conversation, call us at 719-300-7936 right here at Family Flavors, The Slide, World Broadcasting Network. We're going to go pay some bills and we'll be right back. All right, you've tuned back into Rachel's Roundtable. I'm your host, Rachel Stovall, your favorite community advocate, and my special guest, Daryl and Jane Glenn, are going to keep on talking with us about this amazing concept, God's public option, where we actually get to solve the societal woes that we're looking at through being able to share with one another. I'm telling you, it's a mind-blowing concept, totally worth listening to, totally worth enjoying. So I want to take this particular time to see if I can find this the way I should. No, of course not, because being on the right page on Facebook would be too easy, right? I want to take a moment to give you Daryl's bio. Hold on a second, guys. And again, we're talking about the American Christian Marketplace Authority. Daryl Glenn is a legal advisor. He has over 15 years of experience as an elected public official here in Colorado Springs. And after 21 years of active and reserve service, he's retired from the United States Air Force as a lieutenant colonel. Mr. Glenn is currently an attorney specializing in family law. In addition to regular duties as a county commissioner here in El Paso County, Colorado, Mr. Glenn also served as chairman of the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council, responsible for coordinating the research, analysis, and interagency strategies for criminal justice matters in the Pikes Peak region. He was also chairman of the Regional School Safety Task Force, responsible for developing solutions to school safety issues and suicide prevention. Truly a timely topic with some of the shootings and other things as of late. Daryl was also selected by his colleagues to serve as the president of the El Paso County Board of Commissioners during his final term in office. And Daryl won the Colorado Republican nomination for U.S. Senate in 2016. Mr. Glenn has a bachelor's degree from the United States Air Force Academy and holds an MBA from Western New England College and a JD degree from New England School of Law. As I told you guys before, because we're doing it backwards now, Daryl is married to Jane Northrop Glenn and is currently a candidate for Colorado Springs Mayor 2023. Welcome, Daryl.
Yeah,
so glad to get to tell the people about you. I'm telling you guys, this is a mind-blowing, interesting concept about creating the solutions for, societal problems without it being run or messed up by government. And for those of you who don't think government does things where it's messed up, I allow you to look at the VA and reconsider your position.
Yeah.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. Let's kind of get into a little bit more about American Christian Marketplace Authority.
Okay, so the official legal name, because this is a business registered with the state of Colorado, is American Christian Marketplace Authority. The Lord did give me that name. It is, the term marketplace is in there because it's literally a completely set apart marketplace
Sure.
of goods and services from what we see today. It's also authority, because God is the authority over this governing system that is going to compete with the government systems to provide for God's people.
I love that.
So-
Free market competition.
Right.
Yes.
So here's the good news. If you like your government as provider, you can keep your government as provider. If you don't, you can go with God's public option, American Christian Marketplace Authority, because it's a free will membership organization.
Yeah.
So you actually have to have skin in the game to say, I want to be a member of this organization so badly that I'm going to pay membership dues and I'm going to abide by the contractual obligations based on my membership to be a part of this organization. And if you don't follow those contractual obligations, you are in effect out of contract, which means you lose your membership and the benefits that come along with the membership. So it's free will choice. God gives us free will choice, and He wants us to choose Him over the government. So,
Yeah.
but we each get to do that. Okay, so let's, I talk a lot about this. Let's just pick one topic, one issue that God's public option solves, or the ACMA, I'll call that for short, American Christian Marketplace Authority, ACMA. Okay, so the ACMA solves the staffing problems for small businesses.
Yes, please.
Yeah, so let me tell you.
Am I crazy out in the community where it just seems like no one will work anymore? I'm confused.
No.
I go to restaurants, there's one person on duty, trying to get, something at the gas station. There's
If
like
it's
one
even open.
clerk. Hello, if it's open.
Yeah.
I see other ones that have changed their hours.
Yeah.
It's really wild out there, like people have decided not to work, and I'm confused because
Yes.
I thought the unemployment benefits ran out. So if you're at home not working, what are you doing?
Yeah, I don't know. We talk about this all the time, and it's like, where did the workers go? Like, did they just disappear? Did an alien ship come down and take them out to outer space? I don't know. But what we do know is that small businesses here are still having staffing shortages, and it's for a number of reasons, right? One, people just aren't working. Two, the ones that are working are still getting sick, right?
Yeah.
So then if they get sick, they
Yeah.
can't work for a week or more, and then they're short-staffed to begin with, and now they're even shorter
Short-staffed.
staffed, right? So you drive by businesses and you're like, oh, they shortened their hours, or they're not open in the evening anymore, kind of thing. So
Yeah.
That's true. And again, people are making decisions individually, like, it's actually going to cost me more. I'll lose some of my benefits if I go back to work.
That
And
is
I'm
true.
so used to being able to receive benefits that I'm not going to work. So people are they make that calculation each
Yeah.
and every day.
Yeah.
okay, so let's talk about this. So my background is in staffing, and the very first thing that the Lord had me do for Him as an act of obedience and a test of faithfulness was this authority staffing, which I'm not going to go down that path right now. You mentioned
But it was
in
an
my bio.
award-winning company.
It was.
Yeah.
And by the way, 4 years before it got recognized by the state of Colorado, and before he even downloaded the business plan to me, I was driving on the highway and I exited, and as I exited, just out of the blue, the Lord said to me, what I am building will be recognized by the state of Colorado. So He already told me 4 years in advance that what He was going to do, okay? So He was testing my faithfulness. I passed all the tests. I'm still putting myself out there to look like a fool. So clearly I love Him more than my reputation at times. Anyway, so staffing is the core of this. And I know staffing inside and out. I would think I'm an expert in the staffing arena. So I had a
Sure.
staffing agency that specialized in employees coming out of incarceration. And so this concept, when I started thinking about small businesses, small staffing agencies are amazing, right? If you can afford a staffing agency for a number of reasons, they are such an amazing resource for a business.
Yeah.
And small businesses, small mom and pops, particularly restaurants, have never been able to afford staffing agencies. Because there's a markup, right? And the profit margin for mom and pop shops, retail, restaurants
True.
has never been large enough to be able to afford the markup that comes with each employee being employed by this business, right?
Sure.
So they've never even thought about it. It's just not ever been an option, okay?
Right.
So, enter COVID. COVID comes. Between COVID and the government and their agenda, they literally decimate the entire workforce for small
Yeah.
businesses, right? And that was on purpose, by the way. So
Absolutely.
It just,
I'm sorry, I think that too.
Yeah.
right? I mean, right? They got to get rid of the small business marketplace so that
We
corporations
power
can rule.
90% of the
Right.
economy.
Yep.
And,
well, they
and-
certainly want to control it. And
Exactly.
and they created a mechanism to be able to control it now.
Right.
So enter Jesus, right? So the Lord comes in and he says, hey, I love the small business marketplace. This is literally what should be in society.
Right.
So here's a solution for staffing. So when you compare government as provider versus God as provider, government was the provider through COVID, right? So government steps in and says, hey, even though we just purposely got rid of all your employees, right?
Yeah.
We're going to rescue you now, right? So the government likes to create problems and then step out and say, we're going to be your savior now, right? We're going to fix the problem that we just created for you because
True.
we want you to look at us that way. And so they come in and they say, hey, we're going to give you these PPP loans,
Yeah.
right? You can keep your employees. We're going to give you these PPP loans, so you just use them to continue to pay the paychecks of your employees, whether they're working or not. And of course, I'm not going to go into the details of it. I don't even know the details of it. I just know kind of the
Sure. The general.
right, the general
gist.
gist of it. And so the PPP loans, clearly, all you have to do is look in the marketplace now and see that those were not. It wasn't an effective solution,
Yeah.
right? Okay. So here's an effective solution. So with the ACMA, the core of it is a staffing solution.
Sure.
Right? So you have these individual worker members, they pay a membership, they've got a contractual obligation. Now think of the military, right? Because when God shows me things in certain analogies so I can understand them and then explain them. So you have the workers who are the equivalent of the soldiers that are going to be deployed, okay?
Oh.
So now you have workers who are excellence trained in different categories. So there's a lot of people out there who love food service, they work in food service, all different areas of food service, right? So you've got now a category of food service employees
Sure.
or soldiers, right? And so they're under a contractual obligation, being a member, that they have to make themselves available and work for, up to 40 hours a week
Sure.
where we deploy them, where we send them. So if restaurant A becomes a member of the ACMA, their membership allows them to tap into the workforce as needed,
Yeah.
right? So then they can, with no markup. So there's no markup.
That's exciting.
It's just a pass through, right? So they say, oh my gosh, I'm down 3 workers, and we know the restaurant, right? And so they tap in and they say, I need 3 workers. And so we immediately deploy 3 workers to restaurant A, who's a member.
Who are trained in
And they're trained
food service.
trained in food service. So
Oh,
their
right.
learning curve is going to be quick.
Yeah.
Right? You put them on food prep, you put them on hostess, server, whatever, right? That's their area. And so then when they're not needed anymore by the restaurant because, let's say, some sick employees came back or whatever it was, then they put them back in the pool.
Sure.
And then we may deploy those same workers to restaurant B, who is a member of the ACMA.
Right.
But by the way, because it's based on a universal basic income, the soldiers who are at Fort Carson,
They're
they
just-
get their paycheck whether they're
Regardless,
deployed or
that's
not,
true,
right?
right.
And they're doing things. I mean, they're
Right.
not sitting around, on their couches while they're not deployed.
Right.
But that's what this is based on. So there's certain things you have to be doing. Now, for example, we may send an employee to go do a deep clean on one of the restaurant members. Right? Well, they're not
Sure.
working, but the restaurant who's a member needs a deep clean. So as part of a membership benefit, and we're paying these workers, we may
Right.
send them to go do a deep clean on the restaurant.
Yeah.
Right? And that counts as part of their time that they're working. So
They're covered, and the restaurant is covered too by actually being able to keep things at an even keel.
Right. And it's anything from, oh shoot, I need somebody to go run and get me a part. I need a runner to go up to Denver and get me something. Well, guess what? Okay, now we have people who have valid driver's licenses driving. They go get the part, bring it back to one of our business members. So you can see it's a community, right?
Right.
And everybody's got the same buy-in because they're all paying to be a part of this, by
Exactly,
the way. You
exactly.
don't want to be a part of it? Quit paying, and then you can't be a member of it anymore. But anyway, so that's that's the gist of this. Now, we charge the business member, the ACMA
Right.
charges the business member
Right.
just a pass-through of what they would have paid for the employee anyway, right?
Right.
And not with no markup.
Right.
And with
Which is amazing.
with, let's say an
That's literally the best staffing agency
Yeah.
ever.
let's just say an administrative fee for payrolling.
Sure.
Right? So each person, whatever, pick your $2 whatever.
Right.
And so there's a little amount that they pay above the pass-through, but they're not paying any more than if it was their own employee, right? And then the other benefit is that these employees are taken care of by the ACMA from a housing perspective, healthcare, all those kind of things, that the small business now doesn't even need to worry about that. Because if you're a small business owner, it is like sometimes you can't even run your own business because you're trying to deal with the issues of all of your employees.
Absolutely true.
And so now, knowing that these are excellence trained workers, knowing that these workers have their needs met through the ACMA, through the membership obligations and the contracts and all this kind of stuff, you can be a business owner that runs your own business. And by the way, because it's a staffing agency, you can say, this employee is a clown, is a yahoo. I don't want nothing to do with them, which hopefully wouldn't happen because then they'd be in breach of their contract.
Right.
But they can send them back and we'll send them somebody else. Right.
Right.
That's one of the benefits of a staffing agency. So hopefully that's enough to kind of,
Actually,
get
that's
a little teaser.
that by
of-
itself is an amazing.
A little teaser
is
of
an amazing.
Yeah.
Is an amazing service.
And it keeps government out of it.
Absolutely.
Yes. No more PPP loans.
Right. And for the people who are working, no more welfare, TANF, or those other programs. And if ACMA is doing housing, no more Section 8.
Yeah.
Correct. And thank you for reminding me, because the contractual obligation of the worker member is that they must decline all government subsidy that they qualify for. So in order to become a member, they have to sign a waiver that says, I will not take food subsidies, I won't take Section 8, I won't take any of those things, and they would be in breach of contract if we found out that they were taking those things, and they would lose their membership. So that's a way to bring people in, and by the way, maybe we can look at this as helping the government budget,
That's true.
right?
Yeah, well, you if you get rid of a lot of people off of the government dole,
Oh yeah.
and this is a voluntary association.
Exactly,
Right.
exactly. But that's because that operates on relationship. I feel like a lot of the money that government is throwing at individuals doesn't work because they just throw the money at them.
Right.
There's no mentoring. There's no help for you emotionally. There's no intimacy. There's no one to show you how to go from being the person who is impoverished into the middle class.
Right.
And if you don't know those things, 9 times out of 10, you ain't making it.
Yeah.
You are not making it. We're talking about a support system, you know what I mean?
Community.
And
Creating
a community.
Yeah.
And this is generally the difference between someone who's impoverished and someone who isn't. And it's also the difference between someone who is, let's say, middle class and someone who's rich. The rich person actually has the biggest network. We just, you know what I mean, of people that to and that there's exchanges going back and forth, and what we would say is community.
Yeah.
This is genius.
And this is, I'm going to throw these things out because all of this requires more conversation, right? But I'm
course.
prepared to talk about literally every single topic relating to this. But when you look at this as, this is meant to launch as a criminal justice reform solution.
Okay.
That's been very, very specific by the Lord telling me this, and especially having me do the work that I did for him before. And
But this is what people need.
yes.
People exiting the criminal justice system are generally constrained by their felonies from even just getting a simple apartment.
Yes.
Which, if you don't have shelter, you don't have time, and you have a hard time building into all of the other things that bring you to the place of what we call being self-sufficient.
And you need a job
Having
to have
somebody,
shelter.
exactly, having the job, having the shelter, that literally is so much right there. I would imagine that people are excited about the idea. Didn't you tell me you talked with someone, a bigwig in our criminal justice
Dean.
system here in the state?
Yeah.
And they thought the concept was amazing.
Yeah. So Dean Williams. So, disclaimer, this was a couple of years ago. It was
Sure.
right before
COVID.
COVID hit,
Yeah.
right? So I already knew, God's public option was already written. It hadn't been published yet. I already knew. I'd walked out everything the Lord showed me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I contacted Dean Williams, and this was during the time where he was making the rounds of having community conversations with people, and so I just reached out to him and I said, hey, I want to pitch a concept to you. And so we had set up a time where I was going to go in and meet and present this concept to Dean. And so Dean Williams is the CEO of the Colorado Department of Corrections. He was appointed by Governor Polis. He came here from Alaska. I remember reading some articles about him, and the Holy Spirit said that this man is good. That and then he's a believer, and he said he believed that in this article he said, I believe I was put in this position for a purpose, for a reason, things like that. He's done incredible things in my opinion, in the prisons in Colorado.
Sure.
So anyway, a snowstorm hits, and it's a blizzard. It's beginning of 2020, and so we're texting. I'm texting Dean, and he says, "Well, let's just meet at a coffee shop." And so I said, "Great." So Daryl and I met with Dean at a coffee shop, and so I said, "Hey, I just want to pitch a concept to you." So I lay out this God's public option from a re-entry perspective, and so at the end he said, so you're telling me you can pull this off right now? And I said, no, I'm not telling you I can pull this off right now. I can't pull this off right now.
It's the concept.
Right. I don't have any funding, all that kind of stuff.
Sure.
I can't pull this off. I just wanted to know what you thought about it so I know how to think about this moving forward. And he says, and you're telling me you don't need any money from me to do this?
No, you need private investors.
Yes. And I said, no, that would defeat the whole purpose. If you give me a penny, then I have to obey your rules, and I don't do that very well. And I'm like, no, it would defeat the whole purpose. And he sat there and he said, well, when you're ready to do this,
right,
you contact me again. I'll set you up with the people that you need to know. I'll rearrange my pods if you need me to, because we were talking about veterans. We were talking about different groups that are in the prisons. He said, I'll rearrange my pods for you. I'll give you a green pass. You can come and go in the prisons as you please. And he says, just let me know when you're ready.
So he wants a pilot program. That's exciting.
So
He's open to it.
Yeah,
exactly.
So he leaves, and I look at Daryl and I said, babe, I'm so glad you were here to witness that, because if I told anybody that he said that to me, they'd be like, yeah, right, you're just making that up. And I'm like, you witnessed it, you heard it out of his mouth. So anyway, but that was a couple years ago, so maybe things have changed. I don't know if I brought this up again, if he would
I would be shocked if
it
it changed. If you think about it, I'm extremely sure the prison population went up during COVID.
Yeah.
And is rising now.
And they still have the same problems.
And exactly.
Yeah. And the thing is, even if it doesn't start as reentry in the prisons, it can still start right as they get out and we are distanced from the government, right? So it doesn't matter. That is not going to make or break what God is establishing.
And I'm thinking a lot of people would be pretty excited to get out and be distanced from the government. That they would rather deal with a community of support rather than parole people, all those people that so often for people in the criminal justice system, it feels to them like they've been assigned Mission Impossible and set up to fail.
Right.
Well, they
That's
have
true.
been. Let's be honest.
And in El Paso County, no shade intended, but it seems like all of the halfway houses and other things that are set up seem to belong to all of these judges' wives, which makes you wonder if people are getting assigned to prison or regressed because it is profitable rather than it is truly, quote unquote, a punitive measure. And I'm not even sure what I think about punitive measures, all of the way,
Well, the truth is that there is something called the prison industrial complex. Now, to what extent is that a money-making machine? Well, that's probably debatable, but it does exist. It's always existed. It still exists.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but I worked with felons. I would go into the prisons, actually, and speak to the general population in a number of prisons when I was doing authority staffing. And, it's interesting because people, well, actually just all human beings, because we're wired, we get our dignity from contributing, right?
Agreed.
Right? So whether we contribute at work, we contribute as a citizen, whatever, that's how we get our dignity, because that's how God designed us.
Yes, that's good.
And so I would hold my employees to high expectations. And I was like, look, if you make me look bad, you're out of here. This is we're doing this together, you're going to do your part, I'm going to do mine, but I'm going to hold you to high expectations. And so anyway, I was taking some of my employees to work, and one of my employees just popped off at me in the car. And he was sitting in the front seat, and there was another employee in the back. And he's going off, and I said, Jeff, and just a second here, I just want to remind you who you're speaking to. And he says, I know who I'm speaking to, and he just kept popping off. And I said, you're speaking to your employer. Do you understand this? And he said, yeah, I do. And I said, this has been years ago. And so anyway, I pull the car over to the side of the road. And by the way, they worked out in the middle of nowhere. And so I pulled the car over to the side of the road, and I said, give me your badge and get out. I said, my own children don't even speak to me that way. And I freaking dumped him on the side of the road. And then I took the other guy to work. And so the next day I went to pick up the crew from the halfway house, and they get in there like, you're the talk of the halfway house. Like, don't mess with her.
Don't mess with her.
I'm
Should
like,
acted right.
I'm like, well, I didn't do that so that I, was the talk of the house. That's just how I roll. Like, you're not going to treat me that way. But anyway, my employees literally received rewards at their place of employment.
Yes,
they were
because they
recognized
came
by
and they worked
HR.
hard.
They worked their tails off. It was really good, and they were so proud of themselves, and just it was amazing.
Which would be phenomenal for not only the people who would be the employees of the staffing, but those who need to receive them. I watched restaurants closing last year because when they came back from COVID, they didn't have enough servers, and they couldn't convince people to come back. And the people wouldn't come back because they were like, I can sit at home and get money for doing nothing. I'm cleaning the house, I'm mowing in the yard, I ain't working.
Well, and the quality has gone down too.
Mm-hmm.
When you're looking at, it doesn't matter what profession that you're in, when you go in there and you had an expectation of the service that you were going to get, now some employers are having to compromise on that. It's like, I need a warm body to be able to just keep the doors open.
Right.
And that quality of service, that customer service is going down.
I tell you what, we definitely need this concept to materialize. We need all of it. So I shall look forward to being updated on kind of what happens with that. So in our last segment, because we're going to do a short commercial break and we're going to come back, I want to hear a little bit about Daryl's race and, what's going on with that. So we're going to take a commercial break. Our producer's going to help us out. We are here at Family Flavors World Broadcasting Network. We're going to slide into a commercial break and see you in just a few minutes.